I'm Karen Varga with CEAg World Greenhouse Produce, an innovative brand that engages with the rapidly expanding global greenhouse produce industry through a variety of platforms. Our mission is to educate and connect greenhouse produce growers and industry allies to help them better understand and sustainably advance the global food industry. On today's episode of CEAg Talks, I'll once again be speaking with Gretchen Schimelpfenig. Gretchen is a senior energy engineer at Energy Resources Integration, or ERI, a clean energy consulting firm developing a sustainable future for our planet through cost-effective energy management. Gretchen is also the executive director of Cornell University's Greenhouse Lighting and Systems Engineering, or GLAZE, an academic consortium pioneering climate-smart agricultural technology demonstrations and workforce development. Gretchen, welcome back.
Thanks for having me again.
So this time we're going to get a little more personal. I'd love to hear more about your role at Energy Resources Integration, because honestly, I'm not sure exactly what an energy engineer does, and I would love to know.
Sure. So an energy engineer does a variety of things to solve complex energy problems. Some energy engineers find better ways to source energy. Some energy engineers find better ways to use energy. I'm more of an efficiency engineer. I focus on better ways to use energy, but I also can help folks understand if different sources of energy might save them money or reduce their environmental impact and so on. Thinking about this, I wrote down a few major things that I do on a day-to-day basis. I do research. So I'm investigating the industry standard practice of things. I'm investigating new emerging technologies, and I'm understanding energy savings of those technologies. I'm then doing analysis. So I'm often in a spreadsheet or five, and I'm, documenting how governments or utilities can truly understand the benefit of a particular technology in a particular building, like real world lighting installs in a greenhouse, for example. I'm writing. I do a good amount of writing. So I write to communicate to people of lots of different education levels and backgrounds. How do these technologies work? Who benefits from them? Why should they support them? Convince them to create programs. And then I, on the consulting side, do help with design and construction. So I review designs of greenhouses and indoor farms, understand if there's efficiency opportunities, help them perhaps get funding for those, and then often help with the implementation. So once the equipment arrives, once it gets installed, sometimes I'm helping configure it or understand the data coming out of it and seeing if it could be optimized to operate more efficiently. So those are some things that an energy engineer does, and it really depends on the day.
Okay, well, do you want to go into a little bit more of the type of research you do for utilities on emerging technologies, and how does that research help growers and, as you're saying, their day-to-day?
Yeah, it can maybe not seem direct, but I explore these new efficiency technologies and their potential for saving energy. And then for utilities, particularly in California, where ERI is most active, it's the flower garden of the US. It's also the largest greenhouse vegetable industry in the US. I identify the savings of these new technologies, and I tell the utilities, make a rebate program for this. So in the gas side, recently I did some research on how to save natural gas in greenhouses and recommended that there be some new programs created, new rebates created for greenhouse heating measures. So things like grid zone heating or efficient boilers. Those are things that hopefully in the future will be given better rebates in California. And I hope to do so with more utilities in other states. And on the electric side, I just started a study on smart controls for indoor farms and greenhouses. So hopefully in the future, California utilities will offer rebates for automation systems. And so without this sort of research, the utilities might not pay attention to the technologies growers need. And so I really try to find more ways for rebates to get in the hands of growers with this sort of research.
Yeah, I mean, if it's impacting their bottom line, I can see how it would definitely be advantageous in their day-to-day.
Yeah, and they have non-energy benefits too. Growers would like to automate their farms for other reasons, and it would be nice if utilities helped buy down a bit of the cost.
For sure. So what insights can you share from your research on efficient systems for CEA facilities?
Well, I think that there's a lot of skepticism about the amount of energy used by CEA facilities and the ability of growers to control that and to lower the energy impact, the environmental impact. But I think that I have a lot of hope like through this research, I think that there's a lot of technology that hasn't been widely adopted yet, or maybe comprehensively evaluated and implemented in certain regions of the US that it's like really good for. And so with like the greenhouse heating example I was bringing up, I think that there's a lot of efficiency opportunities for growers across North America for more efficient greenhouse heating systems. I think Wageningen University recently published that greenhouses in the Netherlands can save up to 50% on energy with high performance technologies and smarter automation. And there are some folks who are skeptical that that's true. I think that it truly can happen when you do a bunch of comprehensive, perhaps equipment upgrades and automation strategies. And so smart controls, I think, are the next frontier of CEA opportunities, not just for the utilities and for the energy savings folks like me, but for the industry as a whole, for productivity, profitability, and ultimately viability of CEA against other approaches. I think that smart controls are going to produce a more resilient CEA industry for the US.
And wouldn't that also be beneficial for labor? I know you've mentioned in the past that labor is a tough subject right now.
Yeah, with labor usually being the number one cost, with more automation, there can be some savings on the human resources side, while also potentially allowing for the human labor to be used in a more valuable way, a more effective way. And so it's not that we're necessarily always replacing people, but we're maybe using people for their better potential than perhaps something that's a little bit more mindless. So I think that automation has a great potential for energy savings for people like me. But like you said, it's got benefits from the cost side for labor, as well as other things like productivity and yields.
Yeah, that's great to hear the perspective that it's not just about replacing people, it's about making it so that they're able to do a more interesting and less monotonous job.
Exactly. Yeah, I was talking to some folks in Leamington at the last Glaze Summit, and they were saying that scouting is a job that a robot is really good at because robots don't get tired, robots don't skip rows, robots don't forget where they are. They know where they're at with GPS all the time. So there's some things that automation is like, that's the best use for them. And then there's best use cases for humans as well. Like you said, more interesting jobs are just jobs that are better for humans to do because there's characteristics of the task that require some like critical thinking that maybe can't be automated. So yeah, that's some insights from research that I've found exciting and have some hope for the industry.
Great. So, as we've discussed, there are some financial considerations that you have to take into account when making your greenhouse or your indoor farm more energy efficient. So how do you, in this role, help North American growers access funding for efficiency projects?
So I know that growers maybe in the past 5 years have heard a lot about rebates for horticultural lighting. And that's been, I think, where the main source of funding has been focused on the utility side for a long time. But I've been helping growers access utility rebates for other types of technology as well. And like I mentioned, as more studies are done, more new rebate programs will come out, and I help growers learn about those. And so as perhaps programs change, and greenhouse curtain programs, for example, are a good example, they might be really big one year, but then they might not be as available the next year. And so I help growers navigate how the rebate programs are changing, getting better, or maybe, unfortunately, sometimes getting worse for a certain technology. And then I help them apply to those, get through technical review, and ultimately maximize the rebate that they can get. Recently, I've been helping a lot more, especially as rebate programs for horticultural lighting in some areas are not covering as much of the project. I've been helping a lot of growers apply for government grants as well. And so if growers of non-cannabis crops, so food, floriculture, anything under those categories, if they need to implement an efficiency upgrade to an existing facility, they can apply for a Rural Energy for America program, or REAP grant. And those grants can cover up to 50% of project costs. They can provide up to $500,000 in funding for efficiency projects. And they qualify for any type of energy savings. So whether you're saving propane, natural gas, electricity, any project qualifies. There is, of course, like with the government, some paperwork, and that involves some energy analysis. And that's what I help folks with, is the technical side of things. And so accessing funding for these projects may seem like another thing to add to your to-do list. And so what I try to do is take that off people's plate, help be a project partner to buy down the cost of some of these efficiency projects by like 75% sometimes if you can stack a grant and a rebate on top of each other.
That's fantastic. That definitely makes things a little bit more accessible.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the way for the industry to be more equitable, for small growers to succeed, for diverse growers to succeed, is to make sure that the funding is accessible for everyone too.
And in what ways can CEA businesses differentiate themselves using smart energy choices?
I thought about this one a bit, and coming after attending Indoor AgCon, I thought about how, like, the perspective from the consumer, when you and I go to the grocery store or we sit down at the restaurant table, like, we want to have CEA products at cost parity. And getting there means reducing operating costs so that growers can reduce prices at the store or at the restaurant menu. So efficiency for me seems to be the key way to improve profitability, because it's like the second or third largest contributor to operating costs. And at Indoor AgCon, we, heard a bit about resilient growers seeking out alternative energy sources, complementing grid-sourced electricity and natural gas, like on my microgrids panel that I was on. But for me, however, like, every grower, no matter what type of energy you're using, can differentiate yourselves by using less energy and passing on that savings to the customer. So I can buy that CEA product, and ultimately I don't have to know this whole energy story. I just know that it's the same price or potentially even cheaper, but for better quality, longer shelf life, better taste, all of these other things that they want us to buy it for. Yeah. So that's my thought on that.
Yeah, I think I remember someone saying during one of the presentations that no one's going to pay $8 for a head of lettuce.
Yep, exactly. And no matter all these like qualities that you've told me it's worth that extra money, I think they can differentiate themselves by getting to the same price and saying, like, you're going to get this for more. Like, you're going to get more for less, which is what we always want, right? So I think that that's energy can be part of that story without having to be what's labeled on the box, right? It can just be a lower price.
That's great. Well, Gretchen, thanks so much for sharing a little bit more about what you do on a day-to-day and why energy efficiency is so important.
Thanks so much, Karen. I appreciate demystifying energy engineering. Thanks.